Welcome to Jazz Piano Skills. I'm Dr. Bob Lawrence. It's time to discover, learn, and play jazz piano. Well, here we are again, week 3 of the month of February, February 25. And of course, week 3 of every month is the week we dedicate ourselves to improving our jazz improvisation skills. Week 1 always begins with a harmonic analysis of a tune, followed up in week 2 with a melodic analysis. And of course, week 3, this week, we work on developing our improvisation chops. How cool. You know, our harmonic analysis of I've Grown Accustomed to Her Face, the harmonic analysis that we do every month with every tune, explored the form, the changes, harmonic function, the common harmonic movement, and of course, the voicings. Our essential melodic skills, our melodic analysis study that we did last week, always examines the lyrics, melody, fingerings, phrases, and various melodic treatments. Today, our improvisation skills, well, they're going to challenge our ability to create melodic lines using quarter-eighth rhythms, outlining the chord changes to harmony, and heightening our awareness of the importance of playing silence. That's correct. The importance of playing silence. Our 3-week study of every tune that we dive into is, I got to admit, it's pretty thorough. And of course, it's incredibly beneficial if you actually do each analysis, the harmonic analysis, the melodic analysis, and the improvisation development. Oh, and on top of all that, we have our weekly rhythm challenge, a challenge that has us doing some transcribing, some transposing, and transforming of our approach to melodic playing. Of course, the study and practicing of all of these essential jazz piano skills must be governed by crystal clear thought, right? That simplifies music, at least conceptually, so that we have a legitimate chance of developing our physical capabilities. You know, we achieve this crystal clear thought by making sure all that we do musically, conceptually and physically, plugs into and adheres to, say it with me, the 7 musical facts. And what are the 7 musical facts? Fact number 1, music is the production of sound. Major, dominant, minor, half diminished, diminished. Fact number 2, sound is produced harmonically and melodically. We call these shapes. We have harmonic shapes, melodic shapes. Fact number 3, the shapes of harmony are called chords. These are our voicings. Fact number 4, the shapes of melody are scales and arpeggios. Every melody is made up of scales and arpeggios. Fact number 5, when playing scales and arpeggios, we can only move in one of 2 directions. Of course, right? Up or down. And fact number 6, we need to camouflage our scales and arpeggios. We do so with tension, chromaticism, notes outside of the harmony. And fact number 7, to make musical facts 1 through 6 interesting, we add rhythm. That's it. Those are the 7 facts of music. And this is precisely why we approach our tune study centering around the 7 facts of music, using these 3 distinct tuning learning phases: our harmonic analysis, our melodic analysis, and our improvisation development. And of course, this year we're adding an emphasis to each of these phases, each of these analyses, with a specific focus on fact number 7, which deals with rhythm. You know, again, each phase moving forward incorporates a rhythm challenge that I will be posting, or that I do post, in the private jazz piano skills community. The harmonic rhythm challenge, week 1, always involves some kind of, rhythmic transcribing that we then use to work on our comping skills. And the melodic rhythm challenge, week 2, that we did last week, always involves some kind of transposing of melodic motifs to various key centers. And the improvisation rhythm challenge that we're going to do today stretches arpeggio and scale motion through the various segments of the sound, thus transforming our soloing vocabulary. This is why, more than ever, I'm excited about this entire year, because we have an amazing, educationally sound, 3-tier, 3-phase approach that is formulated from a very crystal clear understanding of the facts of music, the 7 facts of music, the 7 facts needed to illuminate essential jazz piano skills needed to successfully discover, learn, and play tunes, to play jazz. Right? It's going to be a great year. It's going to be a great year. So today, we tackle improvisation development. Today, we continue to discover the great standard I've grown accustomed to her face. We're going to learn how to build quarter and eighth melodic ideas using the changes for I've grown accustomed to her face. And we're going to play quarter and eighth lines over the changes of I've grown accustomed to her face, using, of course, sound and silence. And of course, you're going to be given a rhythm challenge to develop your improvisation skills as well. So, as I always like to say, regardless of where you are in your jazz journey, a beginner, an intermediate player, an advanced player, or even if you are a seasoned and experienced professional, you're going to find this Jazz Piano Skills podcast lesson exploring I've grown accustomed to her face, some improvisation development, to be very, very beneficial. But before we get started, I want to, as I always do, welcome first-time listeners to Jazz Piano Skills. And if you are indeed new to Jazz Piano Skills, you're a new listener to the Jazz Piano Skills podcast, welcome. I want to invite you to become a Jazz Piano Skills member. Your membership keeps the Jazz Piano Skills podcast ad-free, which has been my goal from day one. I wanted a podcast that was 100% educational content, no ads. And additionally, your membership grants you many perks. For example, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, you have access to premium podcast content. In other words, you get to listen to the entire episode, the entire podcast episode. The first half of every episode is, of course, free for everyone to enjoy. We always dive into a question of the week. We lay out the educational agenda and the lesson rationale. In the second half of the podcast, for the members, contains all of the lesson content, demonstrations, exploration of the podcast packets, the illustrations, the lead sheets, and the play-alongs, and of course, the weekly rhythm assignment, the rhythm task as well. You also, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, have access to the past, current, and future podcast packets. These are the illustrations, the lead sheets, the play-alongs that I design and develop for every weekly podcast episode to help you get the most out of every episode. So, as I always say, these should be in your hands when listening to the podcast lesson. And, of course, you should have them sitting on your piano when practicing as well. As a member, you also have access to the online courses. These are comprehensive, interactive, self-paced, and sequential courses, all of them packed with interactive learning media to help you digest the jazz piano skills conceptually. And, of course, physically, there are video demonstrations of the skills in all 12 keys to help you physically get a command of the skills as well. As a member, you also have a reserved seat in the online weekly masterclass, which I host every week, every Thursday evening, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And, of course, if you cannot make that time, no big deal. The masterclasses are recorded, and you can watch the video or listen to the audio of the class as often as you wish, whenever you wish. You also, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, have access to the online private Jazz Piano Skills community, which hosts a variety of forums, episode-specific forums, as well as general jazz forums. Great membership there. Member feedback and assistance is available. It's a great community, which I know you will thoroughly enjoy. And finally, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, you have unlimited educational support, private, personal, and professional, whenever and as often as you need it. So all of these perks are waiting for you, wanting to help you discover, learn, and play jazz piano. So check it all out at jazzpianoskills.com. And of course, become a member. If you get to the site and you have any questions about the various plans, we have 4 different plans: a weekly plan, a monthly plan, an annual plan, and a lifetime membership available. If you have any questions regarding the various plans, I'm always happy to help answer any of your questions, so please do not hesitate to reach out to me. And I look forward to getting to know you soon as you become a member. Okay, so on to the question of the week. I selected this question for this week because it fits perfectly with our week 3 improvisation development exploration that we do every month. And so it's the perfect question. So I thought, yes, let's share this today and let's explore this question. So this week's question comes from Bart Tucker, living in Kansas City, Kansas. Bart Tucker, Kansas City. Dude, it's been a rough couple of weeks, hasn't it? Right? I want to extend my condolences. I'm sure that you are a Chiefs fan, and, they completely choked last week in the Super Bowl. But you know what? I'm not sad about that because we're tired of the Chiefs winning. They're like winning every year, right? It was great to see them lose. However, I'm totally bummed because they lost to the Eagles, for heaven's sakes. And I'm a Cowboys fan, and that's extremely, extremely painful. So it was not a good Super Bowl. It just was not a good Super Bowl. So I'm offering my condolences, really, I guess, for both you and for me, okay? But anyway, Bart, enough football talk. Let's get to your question, which is a great one. And I know everyone listening I know everyone listening has asked themselves this very same question multiple times throughout their jazz journey. And actually, I think everyone probably continues to ask this question on a daily basis. So Bart wants to know, I have been playing piano for most of my life, primarily classical music. I have always had a fascination with jazz and jazz piano, so I recently started taking some lessons and joined Jazz Piano Skills. Good move. I'm excited, but must be honest. Deep down, I have doubts that someone, me, can learn how to improvise. I tend to believe that you can either do it or you cannot. My question is, can someone really learn how to improvise? Thank you for your help and for your honesty. And he put honesty in all caps. Okay. Right. Well, Bart, great question. And I thank you for your honesty. And I promise that I will be 100% honest with you with my answer to your question. To answer your question, quite simply, the answer is yes. Yes. Of course you can learn how to improvise. And it's a big if you approach learning how to improvise correctly. Right? Just like anything else, Bart, there is a correct way and a wrong way to approach learning how to improvise. So let's take a few minutes and explore both approaches, the correct approach and the wrong approach. But let's begin with the wrong approach, okay? So the wrong approach begins with the premise that learning to improvise is the process of assimilating as much how to play jazz information as possible, and then undergo the process of trying to place the information that you have assimilated in some kind of sequential order, like an academic connecting of the dots game, right? Connecting the dots. All in hopes that you can mentally retain the information so that you can begin practicing the information so that you can begin to play jazz and improvise like a pro. The process of assimilating as much jazz information as possible goes on and on and on and on. It never stops. It never stops because you never learn how to play. And because you never learn how to play, you continue to search for more resources. Because you hope that you will eventually find the book, or the transcription, or the backing tracks, or the app, or the software, or the YouTube video. That video. If I can only find that video that unlocks it all, that reveals the secrets of how to play jazz, how to improvise. See, Bart, this approach, this entire premise is wrong. The entire premise is based on the assumption that you need to continually find information to absorb, to put into you, instead of understanding that learning how to play jazz, how to improvise, is about pulling your musical ideas out of you and not about putting external musical ideas into you. I hope that makes sense, right? So it's back-asswards, right? It's flipped. It's wrong. And so once you have this revelation, this realization that the study of jazz is a lifelong journey of discovering your musical voice, your musical ideas, your creativity, your improvisational skills, you begin to travel, at that very moment, you begin to travel the correct path to learning how to play jazz, how to improvise. So how do you do this? How do you begin the task of discovering your musical voice, your musical ideas, your creativity, your improvisational skills? Well, how do you begin to successfully tackle any task? And I think we would all agree that any job, any task becomes a whole lot easier if you have the correct tools. So, what are the correct tools for learning how to play jazz? What are the correct tools for learning how to improvise? Well, Bart, I'm going to tell you. And guess what? You won't have to purchase a bunch of books, study 1,000 transcriptions, or watch 1,000,000 YouTube videos to be made aware of the essential jazz tools needed for becoming an accomplished musician. Are you ready? Here are the tools. Listen very carefully. Jazz improvisation is the study of sounds and shapes. The sounds are major, dominant, minor, half diminished, and diminished. The shapes are harmonic and melodic. Harmonic shapes are chords. Melodic shapes are arpeggios and scales. I wonder where I've heard that before. No need to go any further. These are the tools, the sounds and shapes of music. These are the tools, sounds and shapes of jazz and improvisation. Without this understanding, without these tools, you will never learn how to play jazz. You will never improvise. Ever. Ever, ever. But if you possess these tools, these essential jazz piano skills, these sounds, these shapes, major, dominant, minor, half diminished and diminished, harmonic, melodic, chords, arpeggios, scales, if you possess these tools, then you have what you need to begin playing jazz, to begin improvising. Again, if you do not have these tools, you're hosed. If you have a functional command of these tools, these essential jazz piano skills, then all of the other jazz concepts that you have heard about in those books and you've heard about through those videos, right? And you've seen at websites that you've read about, right? All those different concepts, chord scale relationships, modes, altered sound, substitutions, the list goes on and on. All the fancy schmancy jazz concepts, guess what? Will make sense and will be easily understood and applied if you have a functional command of the tools. The tools, again, the sounds, major, dominant, minor, half diminished, and diminished, the shapes, harmonic, melodic, shapes, harmonic shapes, chords, melodic shapes, arpeggios, and scales. So Bart, the first order of business for anyone wanting to launch their jazz journey and begin discovering their musical voice, their musical ideas, their creativity, their improvisational skills, the first order of business begins with learning how to play the 60 chords of music harmonically and melodically, the sounds of music harmonically and melodically, the shapes of music, right? Without these tools under your fingers, you will never, ever play jazz and you will never, ever improvise. Without these tools, you're left with nothing but the unending search for the book, the transcription, the backing tracks, the app, the software, the YouTube video that will show you the way, which they never do. Well, Bart, that was a great question. I got to go on a little rant. I love rants. Great question. And I hope my answer just cut to the chase and got down to the nitty gritty. And I hope it helps clear up any misconceptions that you may have regarding the study of jazz and improvisation. And as always, if more clarification is needed or you just simply want to dig a little deeper together, I'm happy to do so. Just let me know. All right, let's discover, learn, and play jazz piano. Let's discover, learn, and play I've Grown Accustomed to Her Face. All right, quick review as always. When studying, when learning any tune, I approach it the same way. And again, genre makes no difference to me. Makes no difference whether it's a jazz tune, rock, pop, country, folk, R&B, whatever, right? I go about learning a tune the same way. Number one, listen. Always listening. Various artists, not just jazz musicians either, right? Don't fall into that trap to only listening to jazz musicians. Listen to musicians from various genres. Take it all in. Vocalists, instrumentalists, pianists. After I do my share of listening, I turn to a harmonic analysis. I'm always checking out form, changes, function, common movement, voicings. Then I turn my attention to melodic development, melodic analysis, where I transcribe the melody always, right? Never reading it from a fake book, ever. I check out phrases, various treatments, and various standard jazz treatments like a ballad, bossa, swing. And then I always utilize every tune to help develop my improvisation skills. I like to explore it improvisationally. I like to study the chord scale relationships. I look at arpeggio and scale movement through the sounds. I explore tension, the notes that fall outside the harmony as well. So, this is my roadmap. This is what I use, like I said, regardless of the tune or regardless of the genre, right? I find it to be pretty thorough, pretty complete approach, and of course, incredibly beneficial. It's beneficial from a music development standpoint, helping me to really secure my tools that I need to develop as a jazz player. So this week, right, we focus on our improvisation development. So the educational agenda for today is as follows. Number one, we're going to, of course, listen to definitive recordings of I've Grown Accustomed to Her Face. Number two, we will construct stationary quarter and eighth note strings through the changes of I've Grown Accustomed to Her Face. And number three, we will insert mathematical and random silence into these strings as well. And number four, we will wrap things up with, of course, a rhythm challenge that will help us develop our improvisation vocabulary using various quarter-eighth combinations or patterns, okay? So when we're done with this lesson, we will have literally experienced the evolution of developing jazz improvisation language, of course, necessary for improvising. So, with that being said, if you are a Jazz Piano Skills member, I want you to hit the pause button, take a few minutes right now to download and print the podcast packets, the illustrations, the lead sheets, and the play-alongs. And again, your membership grants you access to the podcast packets each and every week. And as I mentioned earlier, you should absolutely have them in your hands while listening to the podcast to get the most out of it. And of course, have them on your piano when practicing and studying as well. Okay, so now that you have your podcast packets, I want you, as always, to grab your lead sheets, and you should have eight lead sheets in your packet. Let's walk through them quickly before we do a deep dive. So number one, or lead sheet one, you're going to see that this is a quarter note string, a quarter note string through the A section of I've Grown Accustomed to Her Face. Lead sheet two, we have motion, a quarter note string utilizing motion. Again, moving through the A section of I've Grown Accustomed to Her Face. Lead sheet three, the insertion of mathematical silence into our quarter note string. Lead sheet four, random silence is now inserted into our quarter note string. Now, lead sheets 5 through 8 deal with quarter and eighth note combinations. So if you look at lead sheet 5, we have a stationary string through the A section of the tune, utilizing quarter notes, alternating quarter notes and eighth notes. Okay, lead sheet 6. Now we have motion inserted into our quarter and eighth note, alternating quarter and eighth note string. That's lead sheet 6. Now lead sheet 7. We have the insertion of mathematical silence again, and then lead sheet 8. We have the insertion of random silence. All right, so you're going to see how this all unfolds from a focus primarily on quarter notes, establishing a quarter note string through the A section, and then the inclusion of eighth notes. So you're going to start to see improvisational lines shape and develop as we move through each one of these lead sheets. Wow, so a lot to dissect today, so we need to get after this. Now, typically in the past, I would play a definitive recording of our tune of I've Grown Accustomed to Her Face, but as you all know, that this year I've decided to place my listening suggestions in the Jazz Piano Skills community forums. And again, a couple reasons for doing this. Number one, I want to be able to suggest more than one tune to check out because there are so many great renditions of every tune that we explore. And number two, I want to preserve as much time as possible for educational content within the podcast, right? So right now, I want you to head on over to the community, spend some time listening to the various recordings that I have selected, that I've placed within the community, within the forums. Check them all out, listen to them, enjoy it, get your favorite beverage, sit back and enjoy some fantastic renditions. Piano focused this time. The renditions that I've picked this time are all pianist. So head on over to community and check that out. And once you have listened to my recommended recordings, I want you to grab your lead sheets again. We're going to start with lead sheet 1. So let's take a look at how to begin developing our jazz improvisation vocabulary. And Bart, you're going to want to check this out. This is going to be very helpful, right? And we're going to use the chord changes for I've Grown Accustomed. Thank you for listening to Jazz Piano Skills. The remaining premium content of this episode is available to Jazz Piano Skills members at jazzpianoskillspodcast.com. Visit jazzpianoskills.com to learn more about membership privileges and become a Jazz Piano Skills member. Thank you.